All right, you are recording.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is a meeting of the Land Use Review Board. We are reviewing the draft regional plan for Addison County, and this is the pre-application meeting. I'm Janet Hurley, the chair of the board. I reside in Winhall and come from a planning background. I worked previously with the Bennington Regional Commission, and before that I was the Manchester Planning Director. I'm going to have board members introduce themselves and our staff as well who are here. Alex, do you want to?
Hi, everybody. My name's Alex Weinhagen, one of the 5 board members. I worked just north of here for about 22 years on the edge of Addison County as the Heinsberg town planner, and I reside in Burlington.
I'm Brooke Dingledy. I come to the board after 30 years of private practice as an environmental and land use attorney in central Vermont. Good afternoon.
I'm Sarah Hadd. I am from Salvance, Vermont, which is up in Franklin County, which is my hometown. And I worked as municipal planner for Colchester for many years, then deviated into municipal management in Franklin County, and very happy to be a member of the board.
My name is Kirsten Sultan, and I live in Linden. I was in consulting engineering for about 18 years, had my own business, and for the last 19 years, here basically as the Act 250 coordinator for the North region. So I've been on the administrative side of Act 250 for a long time.
So those are the 5 board members, and we have 2 staffers with us here today.
Hi, Pete Gill, Executive Director for the board.
Hello, everyone. I'm Adrienne Katz. I work for the districts 4, 6, and 9, which includes Addison County. And then separately, I have a state role as on the board of libraries, but not representing that.
And who do we have? We have Rebecca on the screen there. Rebecca, can you introduce yourself? And Maddie?
Yep. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Rebecca Shalifo. I'm one of the attorneys with the Land Use Review Board.
Thank you. And Maddie, you want to say hello?
Hi, everyone. Madeline Cotter. I'm a technician for the Land Use Review Board.
Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Adam, to our host, to introduce his staff, and then we will turn it over to then I'll give a little background information before Adam presents the regional plan.
Great, thank you, Janet. So my name's Adam Lucci. I'm Executive Director of the Addison County Regional Planning Commission. Thank you all for being here this afternoon. We really appreciate it. We put a lot of work into this plan. It's been a real team effort, and I want to introduce the rest of the team, because basically all of us wrote different chapters and then worked together to put it together. So let's see, I will start with Mike Winslow, who's not here, but he's our Assistant Director and Transportation Planner, so had a lot of input into the transportation plan. Katie Raycroft-Meyer is in the back over here. Katie's our community planner, had a lot to do with basically the housing section, the flu section, a lot to do with public outreach that we did. Jolien Larson is sitting next to Katie. Jolien is our energy planner, had a lot to do with the energy plan, obviously. Danelle Barong. Danelle did the education section. She's our proofreader. So had a lot to do with helping us put the plan together. Hannah Andrew is up on screen, or will be shortly, maybe, Hannah? There she is. All right. Hannah is our GIS manager. So all the mapping that you see here today, Hannah did. She also worked with our Natural Resources Committee to do the Natural Resources section of the plan and worked on the equity section of the plan. Is Maddie Shropshire on here or not?
No.
Nope. Okay. Maddie has been a longtime staff member. She's worked for us as a consultant on this project and was really helpful in knitting everything together. Andrew Lareau is
Not a fire call.
at a fire call.
Oh.
Okay. So he was the one who met us at the fire station, on the bus. Andrew is our emergency manager. So worked on the flood resilience section. And Rebecca Elder, is our office manager and, special projects manager. And she, basically did all of the graphic design and really helped us organize and run this project and knit it together. So I wanted to say thank you to all of them. Thanks for giving me that opportunity,
So,
Janet.
thank you. So the board looks at draft regional plans in this pre-application process. And we have 60 days to conduct a pre-application review, getting feedback back to the regional planning commissions. We are not quite halfway through that 60 days, and we're using the pre-application process to gather as much comment as we can for the regional planning commissions. And so we will open it up to everybody here for comments after the board asks questions of the regional planning commission, after the regional planning commission presents the plan. If you would like to submit comments in writing, you can do so, but till the 27th on this one, so 30 days into the 60-day review. You can do that by sending written comments to act250.board@vermont.gov. And you can find that email address on our website if you can't remember it. So we are, this is the first step in the regional plan review process. Once we have provided the feedback to the regional planning commission, the regional planning commission could opt to do revisions to their plan before the regional planning commission goes through the public adoption process. So the regional planning commission will hold 2 hearings before the commission adopts the plan. Once the plan is adopted, it has to come back to the land use review board, and we have to hold a formal hearing on the plan and issue written determinations in terms as to whether that plan meets all the statutory requirements. So that would come after the plan is finalized and approved by the commission here. With that, we're going to start by having Adam present the plan. Then we will have board members ask questions, and then we will open it up for questions from others. And as we do this, it would be helpful if when people speak, they say who they are, because the AI transcription will it will be helpful to know who's speaking for the transcription. And also just so that people who are not here in the room can recognize who is speaking. And we will also let people who aren't in the room speak as well. Anything I'm missing, board members, or should we turn it over to Adam?
I think we're good.
We will have a break in the middle, and I should also note that our very gracious hosts have a little spread of refreshments in the back. Feel free to partake in those. But Adam, let's have you take it away.
Great. Thank you, Janet. And we have 2 restrooms right over there. Anyone feels the need in this hearing. So thank you all for being here again. My name is Adam Lucci. I'm the Executive Director of Addison County Regional Planning Commission. Right now, I am waiting for my slides. Thank you, Rebecca. I'll tell you, the cover photo for the slides basically has you at the top of the Green Mountains, basically looking down on all of Addison County. So it's a really pretty picture. And it looks from the top of the greens down to the lake, which is what Addison County encompasses.
It was taken at nighttime, apparently.
There we go.
Okay, there we are. That's what I'm talking
Uh-oh.
about.
There it is.
It came up a second ago.
I know.
Okay, it did come up a second ago. Okay, thank you.
It says that we're sharing.
It's taking a moment.
It's showing online, it's just not showing here.
Oh, really?
On,
Yeah.
okay. We're going to the-
People at home can see the slide?
Yes, we see the equity slide.
Okay.
Oh.
We're not seeing it here in the room.
Oh, it just went away again. There it is. We're sharing.
We're seeing the draft Addison County Regional Plan
Yes.
PDF.
Pete, are you seeing it at all?
Yeah, are you-
I'm seeing it.
Yes, mine is
Oh,
here.
there it is.
Now I see it. Yeah.
It's having a rough morning.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, do I dare go to the next slide? That's skip one, I think, Rebecca.
Sorry.
It's okay.
There we go.
All right, great, good. So once again, welcome to the Addison region. On the left-hand side of the screen, you see our 21 member communities, basically all of Addison County except Granville and Hancock, running from the mountains down to the lake. On the our regional profile, just some brief statistics about Addison County: 37,000 people, total households of about 14,000. The next, I guess, couple of numbers are interesting. We've had a population increase since 2000 to 2020 of just about 4%, but the number of households increased by about 14%. So just kind of showing you a lot of Act 181 was about housing and how we build housing. That's one of the reasons why we have a housing crisis. Moving down, you can see the cost increases. Basically increase in median housing price of 187%, excuse me, since 2000. Median gross rent increased by 112%, and household income increased by about 105%. So again, the housing costs outstripping the income costs. Go ahead, Rebecca, please.
Sorry, I was just
That's okay.
trying to.
Great. So just an overview of the plan revisions and real big picture. We did a complete revision of our plan. So we started with our old plan, but we redid every single chapter, not from scratch, but some of them felt like it. We added new sections on forest blocks, habitat, flood resiliency, and equity. We paid close attention to the statutes and the LURB checklist, so we believe we have everything in there that's required. And I also wanted to point out that it contains a new enhanced energy chapter that the Public Service Board is reviewing concurrently with this. Next slide. So how the organization of the plan, you can see a table of contents on the right. Basically, there's an introduction, how to read this plan, how to use it. We included summaries of every chapter next, so kind of executive summaries for casual readers, easily find what they want. The summaries contain the statement of policy, which is a required element of the plan. They contain a brief narrative, and then they contain our implementation plan priorities, which is another required element. So you'll see our statement of policy for every chapter right at the front there in the summaries. Same with our implementation plan priorities. From there, we go to full chapters. Those include basically comprehensive analysis and policy. So the plan is a significant document. Goals and actions, complete goals and actions, progress indicators, things that we're going to look at to know whether or not our goals, actions are effective, and then supporting materials. We have a number of appendices, glossary, acknowledgements, and then links to our website and a whole bunch of other websites. So in addition to being for the LURB and for our member municipalities, we also consider the plan as an informative document for the general public. And you will learn a lot about Addison County reading this plan. And we hope you enjoy it. We hope it's written well. Moving on to process. All right, but before we go to process, I have a quiz for the LURB. Where's that bridge?
Cornwall.
Oh.
That's right. Very good.
How is the
It's the Cornwall Swamp. So that's Swamp Road, which we took. We had a bus ride earlier today and basically went from Salisbury to West Cornwall via the Swamp Road.
Didn't look like that. And the road gets closed off.
And the road, and
Do
we
we
made
get
it.
extra points for that?
Absolutely. All right. Let's see. So process as kind of how we wrote this. A staff member was primarily responsible for each chapter. So I gave some acknowledgements there, but it really was a real team effort here. The Regional Planning Commission itself has about 8 different committees. And our committees were all heavily involved in working with our staff members. So when Jolien was writing the energy section, he had basically guidance from the community in the energy committee, basically helping him with that. And that's the same for housing and transportation, et cetera. I really want to give a shout out to Addison County Economic Development Corporation. We wrote the economic developments or economic section of this plan with them. So they had joint members of our Economic Development Committee. Some were from the Economic Development Board, some were from our board. We leaned pretty heavily on the CEDS, Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy that we had worked on with them a couple of years earlier. But they were super helpful with economic development. Other community organizations. So for example, in particular, when we were writing the community facilities section, we had people calling everybody in the county. So we called the schools, we called the solid waste district, gave us a really nice review of that portion of the plan, et cetera. So we reached out to a number of community organizations, relied on some previous studies that we'd done, and then engaged in very extensive public outreach. The plan was designed and compiled and organized in-house. So let's go next to public outreach. So in addition to the community people that I talked about earlier, the organizations, we did more public outreach on this plan than ever before by a lot. So warned public meetings, we had general informational meetings. We went over most every section of the plan in a public meeting at the regional plan. We did a number of media outreach to media, including Front Porch Forum. Used our website pretty extensively to get things out. When we went out into the community, we went to the community. So we went to local libraries and farmers markets. Ross has a booth at the Middlebury's Farmers Market and saw us there. So we could get out and we went to the Addison County Farm and Field Days. We had open houses with specific clients of different community partners. Like Hope and Acorn and the Champlain Valley Farmers Alliance. So we reached out to them, asked them to help us reach out to their communities to get people in here so that we could talk about the plan. And the last part, equity and priority populations. We attended the Vermont Commission on Native American Affairs, outreach again to the Champlain Farmers Coalition and Acorn. Acorn is Addison County relocalization network. They do a lot of work with a lot of small farmers. So I'm talking more about the agricultural side than the energy side, but they have that too. And also, again, when we were working with some of our partners, we did pay stipends to some priority populations to attend and participate in the surveys. Okay. Excuse me. So equity, I want to talk a little bit about that. It's a new chapter for us. We use the statutory definitions for priority populations. Actually, when we used it first, everywhere in Addison County was basically a priority population. And if everywhere is, then kind of nowhere's a priority. So we upped it a little bit to increase the percentage of BIPOC communities. We ended up focusing on Vergennes and Middlebury as the place of most concentration. So we were looking at the plan through that lens when we did our analysis. We tailored our outreach to provide multiple opportunities for people to participate in local and familiar places. We conducted analysis of all chapters and the programs that are in the regional plan. And I actually think the next sentence here, the next bullet, Middlebury and Vergennes are very well supported with services that we provide. It's their transportation nexuses, their social service nexuses and things. But when we were looking at each section of our plan, the places where we said, wow, the places that could use more services were really our local or our rural and our more lower income places, which isn't that much of a surprise, but it came out again and again as we were doing that analysis. So the final bullet here is we believe after doing this that Act 181 must be interpreted to provide benefits to small and rural communities and landowners to be equitable. Becca? Okay. Future land use areas. So these are the 10 statewide categories. Basically, we integrated those. Our approach was methodology driven. So Hannah is going to present to you. She's going to take you on a little bit of a virtual. Hannah Andrew, our GIS manager, is going to take you on a little virtual tour, largely following our bus tour earlier today, and then wherever else in the county you all might want to go. And she can talk about the methodology that she used when she put together the first draft, but we were definitely driven by the state methodology and then modified within the guidelines by a lot of local input. So all of us went to numerous municipal planning commissions over the course of this. So we have a number somewhere in one of the reports we filed, but it was a significant number over the course of the year. Let's see. We believe the plan promotes compact villages and growth areas, identifies farms and working forests, and protects natural resources. I want to talk a minute about housing targets. So this is on the left is a chart of housing targets that we broke down for each town, and that's just the graph through 2030, not through 2050. That's in the plan as well, but we only used one for this presentation. We used VHFA's housing targets. So Addison County generally, if you look at all our statistics, we're pretty close to following the state averages. You know, Chittenden County may grow more. There are some other counties that grow less. We're very in line with the state averages. We used basically VHFA's methodology to break down our categories between towns as well. We tried a number of other methodologies, and you know, none of them came out any better. Or any different, or there wasn't a significant. So we chose to use basically the same methodology that they did. Let's see, our housing chapter clearly calls for construction of smaller housing types. And again, the information that I gave you are some of the stats on the first page showing the big growth in households versus the smaller growth in number of people bears that out. The need is really for smaller units. You know, I would like to call out that in order for all of our communities to participate in this, the state of Vermont, we collectively really need to do a lot more to enable smaller villages to enact basically water and wastewater systems, community systems. Without it, these numbers are going to be very, very hard to achieve, especially in places like Canton or Weybridge or Leicester or some of our smaller towns down here. And finally, we believe that the village, the Tier 1B opportunities that we've created create enough to implement the plan and implement the housing targets. So I want to talk just a little bit about Tier 1B areas. It's a lot of what this this plan focuses on. We don't envision any Tier 1A areas in Addison County for quite some time. Middlebury may get there, Virgins may get there. I don't believe anybody else will. But we do believe there are a lot of Tier 1B opportunities in Addison County. And that's because basically all towns in the region have zoning. All towns in the region have subdivision regulations. Nearly all towns have a historical center with a settlement pattern. Fewer have municipal sewer. Some have smaller community systems. More have public water systems because Tri-Town water system and Virgins Canton water system cover pretty broad section. Middlebury, Bristol, Virgins cover pretty broad sections of the region. Let's see. But we really believe again that this needs, Tier 1B needs to spread to all of Addison County's villages. We know some of them don't have expired municipal plans right now, but we also believe it's a moment in time, and this is a future land use map, and we understand the the statutory requirements, but we mapped these assuming that they would have, if they didn't have a town plan now, they would have one very, very soon in the future. So for example, Ferrisburg did not have a town plan when we did this. They now have a town plan. And there are a number of others like those. So we think they'll come on very quickly. Let's see. Hannah Andrew, are you there?
Hey y'all, I am here and I'm going to share my screen.
So again, Hannah's our GIS.
Oh, sorry.
Excuse me, go ahead.
I was just wondering if y'all can see. There we go. Okay, so yeah, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. So again, my name is Hannah Andrew, she, her pronouns, and I do natural resources and GIS for Addison County. We're going to go through a virtual tour today. I'll walk you through basically how we built the base map, like the raw map of each of these future land use areas. And then we took those to the town. So that was built on the methodologies that were created for all the RPCs across the state to follow. And then we took those base maps and the planners went out to speak to folks in the community, to the planning commissions and select boards, and to just interested laypersons as well, to get information and refine those maps. So without further ado, I'll start. And planners, if I am talking about a community that you worked with and you have something you would like to add, please feel free and do so. Okay, so starting off with Middlebury. So in Middlebury, we have kind of a couple key areas. It is probably our most complicated community in terms of future land use areas. It has the most, but that also is reflected in, it's our community that is pretty much the largest in our area. It also has the most complicated zoning because it just has a little bit more going on with the college and with development than some of the other more rural towns. So we have a downtown center that's here in the dark purple. We have a planned growth area. We have enterprise. We have transition. And then we also have green, which is conservation, teal, which is rural ag and forestry, and we have this yellow, which is rural general. I'm going to talk mainly about the pink, purple, and then, yeah. So when we started going about creating what this would look like, we started off with existing designations. So I'm going to turn on this layer. This red was the existing downtown district that was already designated by the state in Middlebury. We then expanded that in the planned growth area. We see part of it, we expand out to this blue, which is the neighborhood development areas. So that's getting us thinking about other areas that are already earmarked, already designated by the state as development areas. And then we started to look at the zoning. So turn those. The planned growth area for Middlebury has quite a few zones, but they in general are all these high density zones that are contiguous and surrounding that core of the downtown center. So we have in dark red, we have the high density residential. In kind of the plum dark pink, we have medium residential. Pale yellow, general commercial. We have the village residential commercial. We have institutional, which is the blue. Protected highway, which is this light pink. And this also, I will note, extends over into Weybridge as well. And so you can see this pink kind of extends over into this corner as well. And in Weybridge, those zones are their high density residential. So thinking about that zoning, we knew those were areas that were planned for high density. And then to have it be a planned growth area, it also needs the infrastructure to support that. So then we began looking at the water and sewer systems. So all of this purple surrounded by yellow is existing wastewater service areas. And that hatched purple are areas served by the public water system. So you can see in general, we are choosing areas that are covered by high density zoning. They're contiguous to the core downtown center that are served by public water and sewer or sewer. Yeah, and I will take note that right here, we have an area that is currently a greenfield, but the town has done a feasibility study and found that this is a prime area for possibly developing into dense housing. And so that is one of those examples of when we worked with the community to get that local knowledge of what is going on in their world of planning. And then we're able to enhance the base map that I drew. Before I move on from Middlebury, does anyone have any questions? Hearing none, I'll move on to our next community, kind of our next biggest town in the region, and that's Virgins. Again, Virgins here, we have a downtown center that started off with the original red here, which is the downtown district. That was enhanced with the state register historic district. So those two together were blended into one downtown core. And then we began looking at the areas that were zoned for high density, that were contiguous and surrounding that core, and that were served by public resources. So one thing to note in this planned growth area is that it does extend outside of Virgins into adjoining towns. So up here to the northeast, we see that the planned growth area extends into Ferrisburg. The reason for that being there is currently a transportation-oriented development planning process that is looking at expanding the development in that area and possibly expanding wastewater and sewer to that area. To the west, the planned growth area extends into Panton, and that extends to the extent of the public water and sewer, as well as kind of when we were thinking about the boundary here, we were wanting to match it to where we have areas of Canton that are zoned for higher density, as well as were these smaller parcels that were contiguous to that core and the planned growth area, and parcels that just in general feel connected to that planned growth area. And then finally to the southeast in Waltham. Waltham is kind of an interesting town in our region. It does not really have the traditional village center. However, the town planning areas, as well as Waltham's zoning, both identify this northwest corner of the town to be the area planned for the most density. And so that area is also served by overlapping public water from Vergennes. And so it's included in that planned growth area. Does anyone have any questions about Vergennes?
Comment about the map that,
Katie, will you?
Katie Raycroft-Meyer making a comment. That there is a project in Waltham, and we mentioned this on the bus tour, that has sewer from Vergennes connected to it. It's right over the Vergennes border in Waltham, and it is a 8-unit modular home development.
Great, thank you, Katie. All right, now.
Janet?
Sorry,
Another question.
Hannah got another question.
So I have an
Yes.
observation and a question. Observation is the GIS data for water wastewater coverage areas is different than what we have in our future land use viewer, is more extensive. And so some of the PGA areas on our future land use map are showing up as not being served by municipal water and wastewater. But per the data that you just showed, it shows the PGA areas as being served, and that is a requirement of the PGA for either one. So I'd say we should, this has been a common theme that we've been having, is we need to update our data layers to make sure that they're correct to the most current and accurate information. So that's.
Gotcha. So
Say
let me
who you
just
are.
check. So
Sorry.
this is coming from the ANR Atlas. Just for, we can have this conversation offline as well, but that, like, we're pulling it from the state layer from the ANR Atlas.
Sarah had, you think that they would connect, but it's GIS and technology, and so sometimes there's a lack. So my question, and this is Sarah had again, is the Commodore Drive area of the PGA in Vergennes. I think they have as being low density in their plans, but it's being pulled into the PGA area. So is that something that the zoning has it for higher density, or are there plans around that? I know Vergennes has a lot of studies going on.
All right,
It's-
Commodore Drive, yes. So let me take a look at the zoning.
Hannah, how about if we let Shannon Haggett, the chair of the Regional Planning Commission and the chair of the Vergennes Planning Commission, talk to that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, currently it is low density. Because it is a future land use, we are looking at changing density, not just there, but in lots of our community. So it's an aspirational, we intend to bring in greater densities.
Thank you.
And that Commodore Drive, is that the sort of claw-like?
Yeah.
It's this loop
Okay.
here. Yeah.
Loop, yeah, I didn't see this far in. Thank you.
Are there any other questions in the room on Vergennes or online? Hearing none,
You're
I'll
good,
move
Hannah.
on to Bristol. Bristol is our third planned growth area in the region. And as you have heard me say before, we started with those existing designations. So here we have this red, which is the downtown district. The bright purple is the state register historic districts. And you'll see those are the areas that became our downtown center. Surrounding that is the planned growth area. So this is largely comprised of the parcels in the Bristol Village planning area that don't fall into that dark purple downtown center. So this outlined here is Bristol's village planning area. And so within that area, we have the following zones. We have village business, residential, office, commercial, recreation, high density residential, village mixed, and we have commercial. These areas are all either served by public water or within a feasible extension of that. And so, let's show public water. And when we were looking at that feasibility, we were using the suggested metric from the methodology, which was about 1,000 feet. And then just to note, so on the eastern side, you'll notice that the planned growth area does not snap to parcel boundaries, and that's because this is quite a large parcel over here. And so rather than extending it kind of in a way that would not be connected to the reality of the area, we cut that planned growth area along the boundary of the planning area. We also, oh, excuse me, sorry about that. We also extended the planned growth area slightly to the west just to capture a few parcels over here that were zoned commercial and were contiguous to that planned growth area. And then just below, we do have a enterprise area that was the Andrew Johnson Mill. And those are kind of the intense use areas within Bristol. Does anyone have any?
Put the water, can you, this is Janet, sorry. Can you put the water data up again briefly?
Yeah.
Thanks. Do you anticipate that the water service could extend to that western edge of the proposed planned growth area?
Planners, I think you would be better situated to respond to that.
They're working on the water system in Bristol now.
So they're doing the West Street project,
Right,
which
so it's heading
basically
west.
extends out that way.
Is that West Street? Where
Uh,
the,
West Street is the main street heading
oh, okay,
to
yeah,
the west.
yeah.
Half, and then the east side, East Street is the other end, starting in the middle. So, but they are working on west, so that's going to be a significant, I don't know all the details of the project, but I know it's a significant investment and infrastructure project. That Bristol is.
And that's Katie again
Yep.
speaking. Thank you, Katie.
Speaking.
Any
Go
other?
ahead, Sarah.
Okay.
Sarah I have a question about the southeastern leg. That appears to, according to the Bristol Municipal Plan, be conservation planning area.
Southeastern leg over here. Oh.
Yes, it goes over to Rockydale.
Rockydale. Okay, so this section? Am I in the right
Correct.
spot? Okay.
Yep.
So that is within the village planning area from the Bristol plan. And then let me just take a look at their zoning as well. And then for zoning, that area is zoned as village mix.
So that's a little pocket. This is Katie speaking. That is a little pocket of development. It's mixed, as Hannah said, in between really tight, a roadway with, you know, the mountain going up on one side and then coming down into the, floodplain on the other, the river. That's the New Haven River but that area that pops out is almost like a little hamlet, Rockydale, of Bristol. So I don't know if I answered the question.
Yeah, we didn't go that direction on the bus.
No, we didn't. We
But
turned
it's existing, so that would be infill if it were further developed. At least on the south side of the road, right?
Yes.
And most of that's in the flood hazard, so, yeah. And you said it's mixed use?
Yeah, there's a restaurant, there's
Okay, yeah.
several different things.
Any other questions or spots that we would like to look at in Bristol? Hearing none, I'm going to take us over to Salisbury. Okay. So Salisbury, once again, we start with an existing designation. Salisbury has a designated village that is showing up here in orange. We then expanded that village to the contiguous high density residential parcels, the ones that we particularly included in the village center rather than the village area, are the smallest parcels that are all close together. Once we got into the larger parcels surrounding that designated village, they are still zoned high density residential with one piece of medium density residential captured over here for continuity's purpose of making a smooth boundary. Those are the larger parcels that are still planned for that higher density that are contiguous around the core of that village, designated village. One thing to note is that this is an example of working with the towns. Different towns have different visions of their future land use. And we worked with them to then refine what this map would look like. So Salisbury up here was like, yes, a village center, we should expand around it. This is our vision. On the south side, we had Leicester right here. And although there are a few smaller parcels that are contiguous to that Salisbury village, Leicester did not feel that making those areas part of the Salisbury village area fit with their vision of where they would like to have density in their town. Any questions or and then just to note that there's no water or sewer in this area, but the soils are generally good for septic. Any questions or comments on Salisbury? All right, hearing none, I will take us over to West Cornwall. West Cornwall is the first community that we're seeing on this little virtual tour that did not start with an existing designation. It is a new village center. That new village center, so this dark pink, is based upon Cornwall's existing zoning. And this orange spot is zoned as Village 2, matching Village 1 over here in Cornwall. And so as a result, when we were thinking about creating village areas in Cornwall, we have both this new one over here, zone that was not an existing designation, but was zoned as a village, as well as the existing designation zoned as a village. Okay, so when we were then thinking, great, we've got this village center in West Cornwall delineated, we were then thinking about the contiguous area around it and how to identify what areas should be included in the village area. So we started by including areas that were, so this is all in general low density residential, but they are thinking about overhauling that, I believe. And so we included the contiguous smaller parcels, but in areas where there are very large agricultural parcels, we used the example of the interim Act 250 exemption guidance to draw a 1/4 mile buffer around the village center. We did this because it didn't make sense to us or to the town to snap to parcel lines in these areas and include this whole big parcel that would not fit with their vision of having a dense, clustered development around that village center. And again, in this area, no water or sewer, but the soils are generally good for septic. Thoughts or questions?
Want to say anything, Anna?
Anna Burns, Planning Commission Cornwall and Housing Work Group Cornwall. That large farm there is a perfect example of why the 1/4 mile out is the relevant area that you would want to change the look and the character of your village, and not necessarily rely on the whole farm. In our part of Addison County, and in a lot of places in Addison County, there's a lot of downsizing of farms, and people have land. They may be holding it for the next generation to profit from, or who knows what. But the people that will benefit from whatever happens to that land are not necessarily the current landowners, but maybe their children or their grandchildren. And in 10 or 20 or 30 years' time, you have a whole different cast of characters relaying to you what they want for their area. So what we looked at was what made sense from a practical point of view, rather than stay strictly to the boundaries of the parcels that people owned. That's just about that. I think you saw this morning that the town is the West Cornwall area that's in the pink is pretty dispersed, but we're redoing our zoning regulations, and in the denser areas, we're making up to in PUDs up to 8 units an acre if there's certain conditions are met for affordable housing and workforce housing. So this is an area of town where it's possible for townhouses or triplexes to be built because the soil conditions are a little bit better for septic here, maybe a lot better for septic here than they are in the village center.
Mm-hmm. So we did have a break scheduled for 2:15, but we can finish the virtual tour, Hannah, before we do that.
Sounds great. We have just one more community planned on the virtual tour, and if there are others, I'm happy to continue after the break or follow up later. So thank you, Anna, by the way. That was really helpful and well said. So our final community that we're looking at on the virtual tour is East Middlebury. Once again, we are going back to a community that had designation. So this orange was where the existing East Middlebury Village designation extends to. And This area is served by public water. And then in addition, this area is zoned to be medium density residential, primarily, except for there are a few areas here that are village residential or commercial. And so thinking about building off that core of the designated village center, we followed the contiguous small parcels that abutted the existing designated village and fell into the medium density residential. And then we expanded the surrounding like halo of the village area to that, building off that core, and created this light pink village area that tracks with the existing medium density residential. But those areas are just a bit bigger parcels, a bit further from the village core, and so they fall into the village area. One thing to note is that in this case, when we were talking with the town officials, you'll see that we actually moved a piece of the existing village designation. It is not included in the proposed village center. It is included in the village area. This reflects conversations that we had with folks in the town that this area furthest to the east is not as connected, is not as walkable. It just doesn't have the same feeling of intense connection and continuity that the rest of the village center does. Thoughts or questions on East Middlebury?
Anna, this is Janet. What is the medium density? What is that density in the zoning?
Let me see if I have it. If I don't have it here listed with the pop-up, I will look it up and get right back to you after this.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
so
then I guess that's the existing zoning. Are there plans to change the zoning at all in the now proposed expanded village center? And so those are just two questions about the planning for that area.
Planners,
I don't,
feel free. Yeah.
so Adam Litchi here. I don't know that they have plans to change the zoning in that area right now. You can see in the top part of the pink area to the north by the airport where we were today, there are some relatively small clustered lots as well as in the bottom of it. So and there are plans there is a subdivision within the middle section there as well. So we wanted to include the top section. The town wanted to include the top section of more densely clustered development up by the northern portion of the airport. And that's how we built that one. The southern portion followed a lot of the smaller property lines and the existing zoning.
Thanks, Adam. That's
Hannah,
spot on.
this is Alex Weinhagen in the room. Could you show us the zoning again for East Middlebury?
Absolutely.
It seems to track with the future land use areas, as
Yeah,
Adam was indicating.
Yeah, I just wonder what medium density means in terms of an actual number per acre.
So I know Ross Conrad had his hand up. Yes? No?
Yeah. In this area, right next to the airport, it's for a state airport, it's actually a small airport, but it has the highest number of residential properties by an airport in the whole state. And it's pretty, commonly understood that an airport and residential communities are not really compatible developments. And I'm just wondering, in this process, how would the decision be made, whether we're going to continue, as this map currently shows, with the pink to the east of the airport? Would that continue to develop? We have more and more residences being built there, because we do need housing. But at the same time, the plan, as it states, supports the airport plan, which is to expand another to their runway to about 5,000 feet. So you'd have more traffic, bigger planes, a lot more pollution and noise, more conflict with the community that would be continuing to be built up there. It seems to me that one or the other would be preferable, but to continue to do both, in my mind, it goes against this whole purpose of land use planning, which is to try to avoid problems and plan for the best for everyone involved, rather than to create issues when you see them coming. This process should be used to avoid them, I believe. And I'm just wondering, where in the process does that decision get made, and who would be responsible?
I think that's a decision that the locality and the regional planning commission would work out. It's not one that the board necessarily would have the authority to say, you can't do that. Our authority is pretty closely tailored to its statutory descriptions of these future land use areas. And I don't think that the statute gives this board the authority to say, well, we can't approve that because there's a conflict of use there.
Yeah,
So
and,
I think
and this is Alex. It's up to the municipality. That the municipality is in control of the local zoning, which decides these things. The regional plan is merely reflecting what that municipality's decision is. So that's where I think the conversation would want to happen. Although, Ross, I'd be curious. I'm not familiar with the airport. It looks pretty sleepy to me.
At
You agree?
times it is, at other times it's not.
Yeah.
I live in the Burlington area, and it's a real issue.
Yeah.
Near the Burlington International Airport.
Yeah.
They seem like very different airports.
It's true, but that doesn't mean there is not a potential for problem.
There has been a lot, Katie. I mean, it has been an issue for a long time, even before expansion. So it's just a, it's relative to the area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a question in the back here, Hannah. Go ahead.
Yeah, and maybe.
Can you state your name?
Oh,
Sorry.
Judy, I live in East Middleborough.
Okay, thank you, Judy.
I can actually show you my house. But another thing about that area, because I live to the, sort of to the south of that large piece. That, there's a couple things. That's a huge, wildlife corridor. That's one. Two, in order for development to occur in that pink area, that bigger empty area, there are lots on the road that I live on that apparently must be sold before any further development can occur. That was the original plan. And then it would have to go through Act 250. The other piece that's kind of interesting is the road that goes up there, which is Schoolhouse Hill Road, has to undergo some major expansion widthwise, because in order to get, there's no way two fire trucks going in opposite directions are going to get up that initial hill.
Hannah, is that where your cursor is?
Schoolhouse
Judy's
Hill
talking about?
is right here at the interchange between the light purple and the pink.
Okay.
Didn't we drive down that?
Yeah, we drove down that. Yeah. Thank you.
And if, the last thing is, if the airport wants to expand further, I think it would require the closure of Munson Road, which is at the north side, which then means all the traffic from that area will be going down Schoolhouse Hill Road. And there's no way that road is going to handle that much traffic.
Thank you, Judy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Judy.
Yeah.
Are there any, oh, I see, Annette Smith has a question online.
Yeah, I have a question about the gravel pit on Schoolhouse Hill Road, north of the village. I'm surprised to see it in pink and not as an enterprise area. Is it still an active gravel pit? If there goes,
It's a slightly, it's a very close color. It is enterprise. It's
it
this
is. Oh,
lilac.
could you show that? Because it doesn't show up that way.
Yeah, so it's zoned as enterprise. Here you can see I just clicked on the enterprise and that highlights all of the enterprise areas that we have here in Middlebury.
Can you show the East Middlebury part?
Yes. Specifically the gravel pits up here.
I'm talking about the one that's in East Middlebury.
Oh, in East Middlebury. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar where it is.
It's to the right of Schoolhouse Road.
Oh, is it right here?
Keep going to the right.
To the right. To the right.
Keep going to the right. To the right. There it is. That's shown in pink is a gravel pit.
I am so sorry. I don't know which parcel, but I would be happy to take a look at this if someone in the room is able to
It's
help.
south of Forest Ridge and east of
Okay. This
Schoolhouse
right
Hill.
here?
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I didn't realize. Planners, we are still obviously revising planners. I think it's something we should talk about. I didn't realize it was a gravel pit
It was
there.
a contentious issue when there was a proposal to expand it, I think, to the west of Schoolhouse Hill Road. It's just something you want to look at because I'm not sure you want to, you just need to address it. I did notice when you turn the zoning on that it did seem to be zoned the same as the village, but unless it's been retired, it is something that is an active gravel pit right in the middle of town.
Got it. Yeah, you're right. It is zoned with the rest of the village, which is why we put it in there. But I definitely should find out more about what is going on with that gravel pit. Thank you, Annette.
You're welcome.
Judy has a comment, I think, on this.
Yeah, so, if you follow Forest Ridge Road to the end, that's where I live. That gravel pit has not been in operation for a number of years at this point. Because in order to expand their operation, my understanding is they would be responsible for widening Schoolhouse Hill Road as you go up that hill. It's a very narrow, road. It's straight up on one side, straight down on the other side. And word on the street is, Carrera was not interested in, footing that bill to expand that road. So that's an issue. Plus, if you go on the other side of Schoolhouse Hill Road, there are already residences there.
Can I ask, is the pit closed? Oh, I'm sorry, this is Brooke Dingledine asking a question.
Yeah.
Is the pit closed?
There's a fence, there's a gate across it. There's been nothing going.
Has it been reclaimed, do you know? Is it under any permitting?
The only thing I know is that somebody or other, the state, I guess, is doing some burning of trees to the east. For what reason? I'm not sure.
So this is Adam. I think I can address the burning. Is the Green Mountain National Forest is directly to the east, and they are proposing some prescribed burning in that area as a part of their wildlife management.
Rob, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. That's Representative Rob North from the Bridgend area. This is just a general question, not specific to the map we're looking at now, but it seems like on several of the village center areas that we've been looking at, there is a conflict or an overlap of the magenta color, the desired area for more concentrated development and river corridors and floodplains. So there's an overlap. What's the expectation or the intent or the desire to encourage? What are we trying to encourage in those overlap areas? It seems like we would not want to encourage development there.
So this is Janet. The statute, Rob, has language in there about only including infill areas in the planned growth areas, but it's less clear or restrictive in the village areas. And you don't necessarily have to have flood hazard and river corridor bylaws in place, whereas for the planned growth areas you do, and so it's infill oriented development, and mostly we hope there are flood hazard regulations in place and they would meet flood proofing standards, but the statute is not as restrictive for the village areas as it is for others. But for tier 1B, you do have to have the flood hazard and the river corridor regulations in place. So you can map it as village area, but if you want it to be tier 1B, you have to have the regulations in place. Katie has her hand up.
Well, I was just going to ask you if you could clarify. I have a pretty good understanding when you say infill areas, what you mean. Not everybody might not understand that. So you're saying in the village center or downtown center, the infill, you mean not new growth, but like infilling.
Yeah,
working with
either
existing patterns.
Yeah, either repurposing existing and flood proofing it, or a vacant parcel that is developed all around would qualify as infill.
It's confusing. I think people see the flood, as you're saying, the flood plain diagram over these growth areas. Doesn't mean if it become a growth area, it means you have to deal with that floodplain area in a specific way.
Yeah. One of the reasons I'm asking is one of the things we've been looking at in the Environment Committee in the House is the work being done by the River Corridors Group. And it's unfortunately been delayed by all the flood recovery work that they've had to do in 2023, 2024. So we're not seeing the results of that as soon as we would have liked to have. And so there aren't clear state guidelines on what to do within those river corridors, which we had hoped to have, kind of like this summer.
Yeah.
And we're not going to see that for another year or two, unfortunately. I'm just concerned that we're going to encourage more development where people are going to experience, disaster.
Mm-hmm.
So Rob, this is Alex. Your point is really well taken. And I think Janet's explanation was on the money. If I can just sort of paraphrase or rephrase a little bit, these dark purple or magenta areas that are the village centers generally reflect historic sort of village centers, many of which are impacted by river corridors and flood hazard areas, and we're not moving them for the most part. And so this mapping typically just represents what's there. It's the lighter pink areas that represent, potential growth areas, village or planned growth areas that tack on to these darker magenta village center areas that are somewhat historic. But Janet's point about are we encouraging development there is really important, because the fact that we recognize that East Middlebury has a historic village center doesn't encourage development there. It just recognizes reality.
Sure.
But a tier 1B designation for that dark magenta area does encourage development. And it's at that step of the process that the fact that East Middlebury has a pretty hefty swath of flood hazard area and perhaps more river corridor that this map isn't showing, we would not be able to encourage development through a tier 1B designation unless the municipality can demonstrate through the regional plan and all of that, that they have adequate regulations at the local level, river corridor related regulations. So your point is a good one, but the state's ANR's sort of delayed implementation of the Flood Safety Act won't put us in an awkward position, because we'll make sure that there are adequate regulations before we sort of give a green light with a tier 1B designation.
And Sarah?
Thank you for that clarification.
It's Sarah had, and I think just to build on that, so tier 1B, just to translate for everybody in the room, is that tier where you can, through your RPC, ask for that first level of Act 250 exemption of up to 50 units. And so that's, I think when we talk about, you have to have a higher tier with your flood regulations in order to apply for that exemption. The other thing is, you have, I think Alex spoke to a little bit of what I was going to say, is you have these historic downtowns that were there, and we want to allow for some smart redevelopment and growth. And a lot of these towns are participating in the NFIP. They have floodplain regulations in place that can encourage redevelopment in a smart way that elevates out of the floodplain, flood proofs, so smart income. And I think just what Alex said about some of these other areas where there's potential growth, where you want to look beyond the flood regulations and look at that river corridor regulations. I think there are maybe 2 in Addison County that have river corridor regulations. I think that's something that the state is absolutely working on. That's something that I think is what came out around the same time of Act 1A1 was that piece, and sort of trying to build these together too. But I think that the regulatory relief piece really focuses more on making sure that you have the regulations to make sure that you are flood proofing and building to the future. And I think the last piece I'll say is that's the other piece too, when we're looking at these, and we were just in Lamoille last week. And for instance, Johnson was a municipality that was very hard hit by a lot of the flooding of the past few years, and taking a look at why some of these areas are expanding outside of the floodplain, and up the hill to have safe areas for future expansion of downtowns.
Danelle Byron, I'm only choosing to speak to answer your question, Janet, in regards to medium density. I pulled up the Middlebury regulations, and for that area in East Middlebury, as they are on the water district, it's 30,000 square feet minimum.
Per unit?
Per lot.
Per lot. Okay, so a little less than an acre.
Yeah.
To 3/4 of an acre-ish. Okay, thanks. So Hannah, do you have more to show us?
Those were the areas that were planned for the virtual tour. Again, happy to do others, but that's what we had scheduled, and I know that y'all probably need a break.
Yeah, so let's take a 10-minute break and reconvene at 3, and just stand by in case anybody wants to see anything else virtually. But we'll go to board questions and then open it up further. And hopefully we've answered some questions along the way. So we hope to not keep you too much further than 3:30, but I have a feeling we're going to be here a little bit past our scheduled end. So 10-minute break.
That's beautiful.
Okay, I unmuted. We're live again.
Okay. This is Janet Hurley again. We're reconvening after a little break. And Hannah just finished a virtual tour. Do board members have any questions about the map that Hannah can be helpful with before we release her from her virtual tour duties? Board members? Looks like no, Hannah. Let me just ask if anybody else in the room has any map-related questions that Hannah can help with? Or online? Right. I think you're good to go, Hannah. Thank you for flying us across the region.
Thank you for facilitating in person. So thank you.
Thanks. So next, I'm going to ask board members one by one whether you have questions you would like to ask the Regional Planning Commission. And let's start with Alex. A for Alex. B for Brooke.
Yeah, this is Alex. Most of my specific thoughts were addressed in the presentation, but I do note that there are a decent number of communities that are looking for Tier 1B, and the substantial areas in the lighter pink, the village areas around the darker magenta village centers. And I appreciate that. It seems ambitious, and I don't know, Adam, if you had to push your member municipalities on that front, or if a lot of that was driven by them.
So, we talked about, Hannah and I talked about the way we did it. We used basically the state methodology, and then we adapted that methodology to, as we could within the guidelines, to meet local needs. So I would say the benefit of this law, the benefit of 181 is basically the Tier 1B designation.
Right.
And there is a real recognition in Addison County that we do need housing. And I think I personally, and I think probably a lot of other people in the room, feel that in order for it to be to work for all of Addison County, not just Middlebury or Virgins or Bristol, the big places, that the smaller communities need to have the opportunity to participate. And I think that's what that type of conversation drove some of those designations and some of the larger pink areas, village areas, future areas. I would call, future land use plan, I would call those the future areas for growth. So, I think of Ripton is a little bigger than you would envision, but they wanted to get up because there are existing villages right on the river. There's a steep slope, and then there's a shelf of land where their school and their fire station and a piece of property that they purchased from the Green Mountain National Forest is, which is where they're really hoping to move their village. So in order to get there, we expanded from the existing village up. Moncton is one of the places with a bigger kind of interesting village. It's got the pond right in the middle, so I think it looks bigger than it is. But they wanted to include both Moncton Ridge and Moncton Borough, and the school is right in between. Mm-hmm. So that's the local conversation that drove that, and it's similar conversations. We heard about West Cornwall and better soils and the desire to make housing there. So I think it's the desire to be inclusive of all our towns, all our smaller villages, and the need for housing that drove a lot of what you see.
And just last question, I don't really have concerns about this, I don't think, at this point, but but I know it's come up at some of our other reviews about thinking future, but also thinking about walking distance from these expansion areas into the core. And do you see that as an issue or a challenge in some of these more rural communities that are likely not going to be investing in 10-foot wide, multi-use paths within these areas?
So, the ones we just talked about, I don't think that I do. So for example, in Moncton, the school is right in the middle.
Yeah.
It's not in the ridge, it's not in the borough, it's right in the middle, and it's obviously a major corridor, or potential pedestrian corridor, and they do have a path on the other side of the Moncton Pond that they're working on. And then up to Ripton, they may not all be connected, like everything connects to everything else, but I think the new areas will have we can create connectivity in them. And given the rural nature of the community, I think they can do it relatively inexpensive. The trail around Middlebury, Middlebury is our biggest village, provides a lot of connectivity. I mean, it's a 17-mile trail that goes all the way around. Bristol's looking at doing the same thing. Actually, Vergennes is looking at doing the same thing. So it's not a formal shared use path, but it provides, and I think, I know Lincoln has looked at that in their village. So yes, I think there's a way we can get the connectivity and the walkability within these villages that we're looking for.
Great, thanks, Adam.
Please.
So we split towns.
Who are you?
I don't know. I am Katie Raycroft-Meyer, planner at ACRPC. So we split up, as you can probably figure, the different towns we sort of focused in on. And there's a couple towns that I'm working now, Shoreham, which has a parcel that they've sort of been sitting on for a long, long time that the town owns that comes right into their village. And we just wanted to make it possibility for them to actually move forward and make it easier for them to develop it. It already has water, sewer, has everything. So by them giving them being able to have this exemption would really be helpful. It's another step along the way. They just need to get it done. So, but in terms of the house, I think we did a pretty extensive housing survey. I mean, a couple of years ago, we got a lot of feedback from a lot of the towns. We talked about it in a lot of the towns, and I would say almost every one of our towns understands that they need more housing. And we talk about it in the small towns, and they know that they need more housing for the older population to downsize to. It's not just new people coming in. It is some of that as well. But I think that, but this is going back to your question of, did we have to push these towns? And I think we had to convince them that there's nothing to lose for going Tier 1B.
Right.
Because there's nothing really to lose. I still feel like there are select boards that are like, no way, we're not doing it. But and we're not quite sure why, because there is nothing to lose, especially if you have a plan, you have the pieces, if you might have those pieces in the future, it's like an insurance policy in a way, if it makes sense. So, I mean, I agree with what Adam says. All these areas have either like potential sidewalk connection or trails or something. And I'm working with Bridport right now, who they're really excited about getting this new village area and the potential to develop this field that is owned by Pratt Store, the Pratt family. I don't know if you're familiar with Pratt Store, but it's a well-known place in that area on Prince 2A. That they want to build housing. They want to help build housing for the community on this parcel. And so this would just be a great thing for them. But we're talking about that with trails, with community or gathering places. So it's all part of that piece. I just wanted to share.
Anna.
Hi, I just wanted to respond a little
Remind
bit.
the
Anna
machines who you are.
Cornwall. I just wanted to respond a little bit to your question, Alex, or your comment. Your question actually about whether towns feel like they've been forced into. So I have brought up over and over again in planning commission meetings, the charge to the members to define who our constituency is. And it's tough because in a normal governmental capacity, you assume your constituency is the voting members of your town. However, that is not all of who our constituency is. It's important to know that in Cornwall, when I told you we had interns that we were fortunate enough to have who could do a survey of our residents, and a lot of the people who answered were elderly people, and they heard heartbreaking story after heartbreaking story of grandparents of children who had to move away from Cornwall, couldn't afford to move back, and grandchildren they barely ever see. So those are our constituents too. The people that we've never heard of before, the people that haven't been born, the people that want to come back and live near Middlebury College because they remember the place as being a wonderful place to be because of their college years or their kids' college years. So we have all of these constituencies, and we're not just the people that, we're not just responsive to the people who come to hearings or come to town meeting. We're more than that. And so we look more globally, and Tanya, our select board chair, is here, and she can answer whether this philosophy of opening up our consideration of people that aren't calling us up every day is part of why they asked to be tier 1B.
Yeah, I'll just say, okay, so for especially in small
Tanya.
towns, Tanya Biker, chair of the Cornwall Select Board. Especially in small towns, a select board is made up of 3 to 5 volunteers. Okay, so we're not actually following the legislative schedule really carefully. So like 181 didn't cross my radar. So how did I even learn about it? Adam and the folks at Addison County Regional Planning Commission had a select board meetup, which was awesome. And we got to see people from other select boards and explained what this act was about, what tier 1B was about, like what would it mean to pass a resolution, helped us think about what that resolution would look like. I think no one forced us, but to be clear, we wouldn't have come to it on our own. Someone had to explain to us what it is. And I understand sometimes people are hesitant, like, what am I signing up for? I don't understand. Could this be bad? Is anyone else doing it? And those are the emails I'm sending to folks here to explain why this is beneficial, what the resolution needs to look like. And so once we understood it and had folks from the planning commission come and help us think about why not only couldn't it be bad, it could be good, we unanimously, voted this resolution to ask for the tier 1B exemption. Mm-hmm. So that was how the process worked for a town that's way smaller than a Middlebury or Virgins or so.
Thanks, that's helpful to hear. Alex, do you have more?
I do not.
Let's go to B for Brooke.
Thank you for an amazing plan. You guys obviously did a ton of work. And Hannah, I want to thank you for that virtual tour. If you're still listening, it was really, really helpful. And I appreciate the showing of the underlying zoning districts, because that was really helpful to me. Thank you for doing that. My comments really are very general, and they go to, I think, what's the most challenging part that I have observed of these regional plans, and that is the equity piece of them. I am very glad to hear all the efforts that you did to reach out to focus populations, including BIPOC populations, as well as rural and farm and low-income people. And I appreciate the expression of how to actually make the words on your paper mean something, to implement them. And I think that it certainly is expressed in a great way. I think this is a challenge for everyone for all of our regional planning commissions to figure out how to turn those words into actions. And you have the steps laid out. And I think that that's a very admirable approach. I do think that it's a constant challenge, and you have identified that this is growing and learning through the process as you're going through it. So I think that that's wonderful, but I also do think it's a really challenging area to make the statutory requirements real. And so those are my general comments. I think you've done a really great job mapping that out. So that's what I have to say. And I think all of our regional planning commissions have struggled with this aspect of plans to try to find how to balance those equities and burdens, the benefits and burdens. So great work, but it is a big job ahead, I think.
Thanks,
So I don't have any questions, but.
Thank you.
Well, it's Kirsten, but it's a K, not a C.
You could change it, right?
I wanted to make sure that all of my colleagues had plenty of time to ask questions. I felt like at our last meeting, I got to ask so many questions that I wanted to, most of mine have been answered. I was interested to spend a little bit of time to maybe get on the record how some of the new village centers meet the statutory definition. We saw some things today, and some of the discussion, as Hannah was showing us the map, has been helpful as well. But if there's time, maybe we could drill down a little bit further and just to get on the record, because what we've experienced with some of the other regional plan or pre-application board conversations have been ourselves kind of deciphering, well, what's in that village, or, is it a village, is it a hamlet? And there may be an opportunity to spend hear from the communities and the RPCs a little bit more specifically about those new village centers today, but only if there's time. And I want to make sure, it's great to see people, and if others have questions too. So I'll go to Sarah, if that's okay.
Well, J for Janet is before S for Sarah, so
No,
do you want to include your?
Tad ends in a D, so you're next.
Oh, we're going to last names. Okay, I see how this goes. So I think
It ends in two Ds.
I think I'll add a little bit more in terms of kudos. It's nice to see the different variations, and there are some different things that I picked up out of this plan that you did. There's like the pharmacy program and the natural resources chapter. I think the equity piece was very well done. Emergency management. I think I had two questions just to try and keep it brief. And I think you already touched on this in terms of interweaving with the economic development. You have a SEDS program, and just a little bit on the status of that, because as I was reading through the appendices, there's some placeholder language about like baseline needed. And so are you undergoing an update to your SEDS now, or?
No, the SEDS is in place. So we wrote the SEDS a couple of years ago. And we did so we wrote this together with Addison County Economic Development. And we did draw from a lot of the indicators that we were using. So same statistics, so they would, feed and the plans would feed and interact with one another. I'm not sure what you mean about the placeholders or baseline statistics, because it may be we just forgot to go back and plug it in, and fortunately it's a draft. I'm not sure, but if you point that out to us, I'm sure we can take care of it.
All right. And then the only other question.
Well, I guess I would say, so our SEDS exists. We have applied for an economic development district with Chittenden County, Rutland County, and Washington County, and we have not heard back from the EDD, or excuse me, the Economic Development Administration. So, yeah.
May be able to provide some context. Oh, sorry, Alex Armaniman, Executive Director of the Addison County Economic Development Corporation. And I think there were certain metrics incorporated into our RED, or our Regional Economic Development Strategy, that we were hoping to measure in the future. So in areas where it references no baseline, there's no baseline data for that metric. It's something that we hope to begin measuring and creating that baseline for future track.
Fantastic. Thank you. And then I think my second and last question is around the housing targets. And I think it's commendable in terms of shooting for the tier 1Bs. And I think that you had something about 60% of your target growth is intended to occur within the growth areas. And trying to average around 200 units per year, how that compares to your existing. I think that's something that we've heard throughout the state, is these are ambitious targets. I think at least here you are making that extra step, going to fully hopefully incorporate some of the tier 1Bs, which will help you ramp up. But these are potentially higher growth rates than have historically been seen. And so I guess just interested in hearing in terms of your pragmatic viewpoint of achievability of reaching some of those targets over the next few years.
So I would tell you it's about twice the growth rate than what we've been doing, at least for the past 25 years or so, maybe 30. So yes, they're pretty ambitious. You saw the statistic I gave you as far as the households versus population growth. There are a lot more household growth, so there's definitely a need there. We will do better in our towns, cities with water and wastewater. So for example, we went by the Stonecrop housing development this morning. That's 250 units. That's a significant portion of even Middlebury's targets, which is our biggest. And there are other places for development like that in Middlebury. We talked about the Sanborn lot down on the southern part of town. Virgins also has water, wastewater, and has some significant housing going in right now. So we talked about Peter Khan's 75 units there. So I think the targets, I think there's an appetite for it, and there's a target where it's easier, where the infrastructure exists, where it's going to be harder, but we want all our smaller communities to participate in. This act shouldn't just be for the bigger, more developed communities. It should involve all of Addison County. It is getting water and wastewater or the capability to do dense housing in our smaller villages, which would, also give them a lot of life. I think getting some more people into places like Whiting or Ripton or Moncton would help those communities as well. Some of them were probably bigger in 1830, at least on the west side of the county when the sheep boom was going on, than they are now, or they're just catching up. So did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Can I make a comment to Katie Raycroft-Meyer? Before we started working on, with the targets, we had been really, as I said, we did a housing survey, and we really had pushed communities to go for the bylaw modernization grants. And we've had multiple communities we've worked with them to redo their zoning, and some are doing that, as Anna has told us, they're doing them on their own. But it's been a big change, I think, for a lot of communities, and they've kind of come around to accepting that. Shoreham, Lincoln, Bristol,
Moncton.
I can't remember all of them now. Salisbury is just finishing it up. So there really were, and part of that is to get to quarter acre zoning in your village core. And they managed to do that. And they weren't required. Shoreham actually was required because they do have septic, which is, was interesting, but they were going to do it anyways. But I think that is something that I think about when meeting the targets. It's not just these developments. It is fitting in this infill, a different type of infill, but also then looking at other things like being able to change something to a duplex or a triplex and work that in a lot of big old empty houses, which you've heard about all over the state, and changing the setbacks and work in explaining what ADUs are to people. We all understand what they are, but they don't understand what they are and how you can work that in. And I think that is a big part of that, but it's little and it's So I think with a lot of the small towns, that's what I try to encourage them. It's like, we're not gonna come in with a 25 unit multifamily housing plot right in the middle of, that's not, you don't need to do that. You can do other things. If you were to get 10 more units, wouldn't that be great? You know, so I think that that is a big piece of how we look at achieving targets.
Do you have any more, Sarah?
So this is Alex. One follow-up. I should have asked this, sorry, but lots of chapters. So the VHFA targets that you're using, there's low and high. Which one were you at?
We chose the mid. We chose the mid level.
Okay, that seems to be what everybody's doing.
Yeah.
So, okay, thanks for the clarification.
So this is Janet. Just more follow-up on the housing. The housing chapter didn't have your explanation of how you municipalize. It was in a box in which chapter was it? Chapter 8.
Land use, I think.
It was in the land use.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you want to put it in the housing chapter.
I thought we had it in there.
I couldn't find it, and maybe, you know, we've been reading a lot of pages, plans.
Municipalized, is that?
Yes, municipalized, and so it is in a box on page 8 in chapter 8. But I wonder if you want to put it in chapter 5 instead.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I also thought that was awkward.
Yeah.
But also because your document is not one document, it's a series of PDFs, so at least the way we received it, it was, you know, I had to jump to sort of find it.
We have a couple hard copies in the lobby if you want to take.
Digital's good, digital's good. It just became a separate.
Sarah, and I will say that the thing that I really liked, as opposed to being redundant, is in some areas you say, go see this area. And
Yeah.
And so I think even just that of like, go see the land use chapter.
Right, you could just refer to it, but the other thing about the housing targets is, my understanding is that you aren't supposed to just municipalize, but also to talk about how types, how many units of different types. And did you do that? Did I miss it?
Well, I would say in the housing section, we were very clear about the need for, you know, smaller types and all types of housing.
Yeah.
So we did do that. Did we say that, you know, Shoreham needs to build 21 one bedroom units and 10?
Mhm.
And no, we
Okay.
absolutely did.
We kind of chose not to.
Okay,
How about the affordable?
But
that's the other.
Talked about it a
Yeah.
lot, but we couldn't
Okay.
predict, because we felt we couldn't predict.
Yeah.
How do we, you know, we can predict. We know, and we're suggesting to the towns when we work with them, how they might achieve this. We can't predict what developer is going to come in and say, you know, what deal is going to be.
Right.
And yes, this was an issue we discussed because it does say that in statute. So we, in our housing, so the housing plan was actually redone right before, then we had to redo the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's probably why the municipalization was
Oh,
like.
ended
how
up
do
in
we-
another chapter.
And looked
yeah.
at Act 181 kind of as a solution to the housing issue. So in the solutions for housing, we kind of list all those things, all the different ways that you can encourage
okay.
housing. So, yeah.
And in the
this was a debate
population
in the
chapter, excuse me, Adam, in the population chapter, we did basically lay out pretty clearly, here's the demographics of Addison County.
Here's what you need. Yeah.
This is, these are the needs, but we didn't put numbers to it.
Okay.
Could I,
Can I ask one last question first? Also about the housing, what about affordability targets? And do you feel about, did you say that a certain number should be affordable or a certain percentage, or?
I think we also looked at that in terms of what is the percentage of people that need affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we're looking at that across, you know, we could look at each town, but that's going to change.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the same with the types.
Okay.
outline pretty clearly the need and the percentage of people in the region that are burdened by housing. So, and then the idea is to create options for that percentage. But once again, we didn't get down to the number.
This is Alex. My follow-up to
If
that.
that was going to be an issue. I wondered.
My follow-up to that is just that from a policy standpoint, at the state or the regional level, hitting a target that the legislature said we all had to come up with is meaningless if by hitting the target, it's still unaffordable, right? If it's all just top of the market rate, but we hit the target because, we had some big housing developments. And so saying something in the regional plan about percentages of the target that ought to be affordable to somebody earning the median income or whatever, I think will help us track these things going forward in the next regional plan update to say, hey, we hit the target, but PS, we didn't hit our goal or we didn't hit this percentage of affordable at whatever range you want to talk about it.
Anna.
I was just gonna say that in Cornwall, when our staff person Danelle came to talk with us about our map exercise, we looked at the data, the demographic data, and we looked at trend lines to show what was needed. And when you look at the trend lines, the number of people going up and growing older and the number of people coming in who are older and the number of the number of children that aren't being born to families, you are much clearer about this point than you could ever get if the Regional Planning Commission said, here are targets. We have to do our targets based on real life, more practical interactions between what we know about our people and what we see over time and what the people tell us.
Thanks. Any more board comments? Do we want to open it up to everybody who is online and in the room here? Anybody have comments or questions? And I don't know if we have any state partners here today, do we? I don't think we do.
Didn't see any.
Annette, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I do for Adam. And I will note that I've been attending all of these meetings, and I haven't asked this before, Adam, so I'm going to single you out. But I'm interested in your thoughts about the regional plan as it is in effect for regulatory purposes for Act 250 and Public Utility Commission. And I will note that one of your early slides called it the Public Service Board, and it was changed in 2017. So, but there is a regulatory role to play. And I looked at some of the chapters and I really didn't see regulatory language. And it differs from region to region, but I do wonder what your thinking is on it.
So you're right, Annette. One of the purposes of the regional plan is to serve as a clear guideline, a regulatory guideline for Act 250 and yes, the Public Utility Commission. Excuse me. And my earlier slide was actually Public Service Department is who we have reviewing the energy plan.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, but no, you're right. I need to change it.
Well, no, the Public Service Department does make the determination of energy compliance. So you're right there, but the plan does use the Public Service Board name instead of PUC, and I think you need to do a find replace, and fix that.
Okay, great, good. But getting back to your question, Annette, yes, it absolutely serves that purpose. There are places that I can point to you where it has language that basically policy language that either of those boards can rely on, and we believe it's written shall and clearly enough to have them make it. The energy section is one of those places. Within Act, I guess 181, and for housing purposes, we were more planning and less regulatory. So our boundaries are very clear. The Act 181 boundaries of where the villages are and things will set basically a clear boundary there for regulatory purposes. We didn't include a lot of housing language I can think of that's, thou shall not. So it depends a little bit on the chapter, and I guess we probably do tend to be more on the planning and on the permissive side. There are more mays than shalls in our plan.
I think the reason that it came to mind with your plan is because Addison County has been the subject of a lot of solar development, a lot of that you have the gas pipeline and the transmission line, which I note in the plan indicates that there's another plan to do more with that. And so, that I think it's very challenging for planners to come up with the specific regulatory language that the Supreme Court has said is needed. On the other hand, since that is what is one of the roles of the regional planning commissions, that's one thing I look for. So my other question and my final comment is, how many pages is the full plan?
I added them up, and this is Janet, and I think it was 280 something, but that didn't include all of the appendices, or maybe that did include them.
I think it does include.
It does include them. Okay.
That
So,
was then in comparison to the last one you reviewed, which was over 500 pages.
Yes, this was much more readable. Thank you.
That was a goal.
Readability was a
We
goal.
want you to read it.
Can I just further comment? This is Brooke Dingledine. With regard to the use of the municipal and regional plans for regulatory purposes, I do want to point out that's not what those plans were originally intended for. They were aspirational planning documents, and Act 250 and the Public Utility Commission that imported met most of the criterion into that process. They do rely on these documents, particularly for aesthetics. And while it may be the most subjective, it is really super important that that is expressed not only in town plans, the shalls, this is our ridge named X that we don't want development to happen on, that kind of thing. And that is very important in the regional plans now as well, because what we have seen in the litigation context is the arguments that municipal plans as a standalone document to protect, say, a ridge line or an area, that is not necessarily significant, particularly at the PUC, unless it also gets regional recognition from the aspect of the criterion of orderly development. So while I think it's a square peg in a round hole to some extent to use a planning document for those regulatory purposes, it is also incredibly important that the evidence upon which our communities want that protection is expressed in those documents. There's no replacement for it, and criterion 8 particularly is of no import unless we have those areas clearly defined. So it's an area that I litigated for a long time in my career, and the importance of it can't be overstated. So I just wanted to follow up on Annette's question about that.
Okay. No, it's a good, and I can think of in the energy section, I know we have a couple of edits that we're going to put in that, sometimes you kick yourself after the fact, right? And say, we're gonna do this. I know we're gonna have, some basically citing criteria specific citing criteria that we're gonna add to the plan that was not in this draft, but,
Okay.
we realized should have been.
Okay, it's good to know. Thank you, Adam. Any other questions from anybody?
Not so much a question, but a comment.
Sure.
Shannon Haggett, a couple of different hats. My first hat will be as chair of Addison County Regional Planning Commission. I just want to say the staff here did a tremendous job in putting this document together. We were talking about, did you have to push municipalities for 181? Having seen month in and month out the schedule of who was going where to what town for meetings and then hearing about the results, it was incredible. The amount of work and the results were just fantastic. So a big thank you to them for all of that. Taking that hat off, putting on my Virgins hat, we were talking about, the housing targets and yes, they are ambitious, but I look at it with things like Act 181 and the potential of 1B being a tool that enables that to happen a little bit better. You guys were talking about seeing some of Peter Kahn's planned development in Virgins. He started with some smaller developments, and in the middle of that operation, we were awarded a neighborhood development area designation. He has said that made his life a lot easier and allowed him to expand from what he was originally planning, which helps our community as well. And so when we look at those kinds of things, when we're talking with Alex about, pursuing chips, things like that, yes, these goals are big, but not insurmountable. And by providing tools and a framework to get there in an organized fashion is a wonderful thing. And so thank you for that.
Thanks for that. Adrian.
So Adrian Katz, and thank you for the presentation, Regional Plan Commission. I've really appreciated hearing from your perspective as well as the communities you're speaking for and the communities you're working with, as well as hearing from the community members. And to hear a little bit, the context helped me really understand why you might have, to use Kirsten's word, deciphering the information, the land use categories, how you might decipher and interpret those categories and how you, like the analysis that you were applying, that's very helpful. The bigger question that it makes me think about is really that it makes me wonder about a balance between municipal kind of interpretation, their individuality, and taking that information, like having this map mirror the information, balancing that with that this is one regional planning commission's plan and there's others across the state, and how do we employ those land use categories in a way that's consistent and that's fair. That it makes me think about that balance. I guess that harkens back and real, but for like your comment, Brooke, about maybe really think about the individuality. That it's important to provide that analysis so we can understand that thinking, so that we can use it in other ways, perhaps in ways that you outlined or in others. But kind of thinking about that more. That's my thought.
So my response to that would be, thank you. I think we really took the state methodology to heart. When Hannah went through all of, each village that she showed you, she kind of showed you how we use the methodology to put things together. That's how we created every first draft that we brought out to our communities. It was basically strictly the methodology. And then within the guidelines that they have, we worked with those municipalities and took some of their local knowledge about you know, well.
Conserve land and like they
The flood-
wanted that.
Yes, we want to develop the here, or things of that nature. And that's how we knit it together. And it was a collaborative effort, between, you know, Hannah and the planners and the municipalities that we were working with. And so thank you.
So Kirsten, do you want to ask anything about any particular non-legacy village?
Sure, if we have time.
Well, it's
So I'm gonna start.
3:45. I
Okay,
think
yeah.
could
like,
aim
let's
for
make-
4 o'clock,
Make
maybe?
a little use of the time.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna read part of the definition of downtown and village centers. These areas are the mixed-use centers bringing together community, economic activity, and civic assets. Then there's a sentence that pertains to legacy. And then it goes on to say, the downtown or village centers are the traditional and historic central business and civic centers within planned growth areas. Village areas may stand alone, not required to have public water, wastewater zoning or subdivision bylaws. So this is setting aside like a 1B component. And so, I mean, really, it could be any of them, that are the non-legacy ones, like, you want to say anything about Cornwall in terms of how, like the new Cornwall Village Center, or anyone in the room, like we could sort of,
I
Yeah.
offer my observation on a lot of these and drilling down, and it's very helpful to turn on
Sarah, by the way.
Sarah,
Go ahead.
yes. A lot of these areas, all but for municipality, perhaps Hannah apply. Because some of these have legacy state register historic districts or national register districts, that are sort of underlying. And it was interesting, I think there are even some, village areas that chose to be village areas as opposed to centers that had that historic element to them. So, I sort of looked at it as, being very inclusive of some of these historic areas that perhaps before were not recognized. Maybe there's a barrier to applying for a designation. Maybe it wasn't on a radar, but, I don't know if there's a particular one that perhaps wasn't inclusive of a historic district. I thought most of them were.
yeah, I'm looking now.
Well, what about West Cornwall? It's one we keep talking about it. This is Alex. We went to see it. It's a new village center. We have representatives here today to talk about it.
And that has a state
Yeah.
register district too.
It does,
Does it?
yeah.
Okay.
And it's not that I'm suggesting that I don't think these new village centers qualify as such. It's just getting a little bit more content into the record about that statutory definition. So if there's specific civic assets or businesses or features of those village centers that someone wants to highlight, I think that's
So
great.
let me,
So
can
yeah, like
I point out some that
Ripton?
that we're talking about?
Ripton, maybe one.
I can speak to one of them.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm the town clerk of the town of Panton,
Okay,
and Panton hasn't had that designation before. And the designation that Panton kind of aimed for here for the village center highlights basically the center of town, what's called the Panton Four Corners. The Panton Four Corners contains the town hall. It contains the park and ride across the street from the town hall. Town hall is also the place of village offices. It used to contain a general store, the Panton General Store, which is no longer in operation, but always kind of floated as a general store center area. And it also literally, as the Four Corners, contains an area of, obviously connection, but also access to other parts of town, particularly the lake shore and the town beach, just down the road from the Panton Four Corners. And so Panton, having never had that, Panton's been a town since 1761 and hasn't had that designation. And so in doing this, we were looking to find that designation and really allow for kind of greater opportunity for development, greater opportunity for grants, greater opportunity for participation in all the extras that they had to offer. And also just recognizing the nature of that place as the village center. It's been the village center for hundreds of years. There's two churches, like I said, stores, the town hall, the things like that. And so I think that's,
you know what's great? And The flood hazard is not there.
Also that, we are high and dry and well away from the flood hazard. We have beautiful views. We have the Panton Memorial Park is there. It's a very kind of postage stamp park, but it is there. It is, we have the advantage also of working with Green Mountain Power. It's a emergency access shelter that receives power even in emergencies based on a battery bank powered by solar panels. There's a variety of reasons why that village center is, designation will be helpful, but also de facto exists. And so looking for that as part of that has been important.
And can I jump on to him? Danelle Byrong, Addison County Regional Planning. Speaking in regards to Panton, it is in their plan. One of their goals was to go through the process for designation. I think there's just been a turnover of a small populated town as far as making that happen. So I think if anything, that was probably the why. The intention was there previously, all of this for the plan. It just didn't get.
Yeah.
I can comment on Katie Raycroft-Meyer on two towns that don't have legacy. One being Bridgeport, which I mentioned before, and they have had a lot of it, I think, was education and just information of understanding what the village center designation could be. And we I think it was last fall, I can't remember now, but not less than a year ago, before Richard left, Richard Moore, he went to Bridgeport and they went through the whole process. We did the tour and the decision was made not because it was so close to this all happening that they were going to wait. And they're very excited about this, the core and the village area. And as I said before, within the village area by Pratt Store, there's a big field where they're looking at housing. So they have a great historic green and center and buildings. And I think it was capacity, looking at it as something that was too difficult to do. They just didn't get there. And then they're ready to go. And now they're very excited about this. Lincoln is another town that has never pursued village center designation, not sure why, but they were toying with it but they do have, this designation. They're a town that for some reason, we're not sure if we're going to get them to go 1B, but not quite sure why, but I think it is an education piece. Not really fully understanding it. But they have had it in their plan. They just haven't done it. And so now it's sort of tied into all of this planning.
Thank you.
I'm trying to think of other towns that.
This is Anna. I can speak about West Cornwall very briefly. We have a village center in Cornwall. There's always been a settled area in West Cornwall, and it has an operating business. I don't know whether you went on the cross street. And there was a church there. It's a building still that'll probably be used for something that isn't a church, but probably a common good type of thing. In our village center, our existing village center, there are two big parcels behind Town Hall and also near Town Hall. And there are two landowners, neither of whom is interested in selling or developing their land. And they don't care about our housing targets or our housing crisis. That isn't their problem. So if we want to have our town grow and prosper, we had to look somewhere else beside our village center. And not to mention the fact that there's heavier clay in the village center than there is in West Cornwall. So we're kind of practical people. I mean, what else can you do in a situation like that than look where the opportunity yields the best potential? And it was all about housing.
This is Alex. I think Sarah's point is an interesting one, and the mapping helps show it, right? There's legacy village centers that have had the designation in the past. And then there are the state register historic districts, which also show up on the map. And I just see two Addison County communities that have neither, Leicester and Goshen. So
Goshen.
are those the ones you want to talk about, Kirsten? 'Cause-
No, I didn't have in mind that there was a particular one. I was just interested again in any of the non-legacy ones, just getting a little bit more information about how they meet that definition. Yeah,
Which is really
and just sort of like,
that's useful to us. This is
yeah,
Brooke
and
speaking.
like, of
Yeah.
course, the state historic designation or a national historic designation piece is very helpful and relevant. But there could also be other things that people would want to mention.
I think it's capacity.
Yeah.
It's Sarah. So I think just to talk about Goshen for a minute, in terms of reviewing that, going with this idea that every town in Vermont should be able to have a village center. And also when you start to sort of look at in the framework of the housing targets that you're trying to meet, and I think 33% of the county is is possibly going to be tier 1B, which is a fantastic number, but you need that number to meet the housing
Wait.
targets.
What, 33%?
Is going to be tier 1B eligible, I thought, or something.
No, it must be smaller than that.
3.3.
3.3%,
Yeah.
all right, sorry.
Factor of 10 problem.
Yes,
there.
all right. Sorry, I should put my glasses on at this time of the day. Goshen has, and I could be wrong on this number too, I think their village was a village of 4 parcels.
Beautiful.
So if Goshen wants to have a new village that they haven't had before and they want to have 4 parcels being a village, fantastic. It's, if you take a look at it, it seemed to be fairly tightly clustered. And they have an expired plan, but they have suitable soils, and zoning and subdivision regulations, and it seems just a very tight, area. So that seemed to be fairly limited and fantastic for Goshen.
I concur, it's 4 parcels.
And I think
centered on the town
License-
office.
is it like, the other one is, I think, 8.
Lester?
Yes.
Does the RPC want to add any information about those 2 towns? About those village
Well,
centers?
Goshen is, I mean, it's a settlement. I don't know actually the history of, but it was, I mean, there's some beautiful buildings tucked in the side of the mountain with surrounded by forest. And it was a, you know, a community that settled there. And that is, I mean, that's their center. They have several buildings and they're old and, you know, they're historic and,
Is that your smallest town?
yeah,
Yes, there are,
like under 100, I think.
no.
89. I don't
No,
know.
it's more than that. But
How
it-
much?
So
It's
this is
100
Adam,
something.
Adam Lucci. Goshen, let's see, the municipal building is there, the municipal garage is there at the top part of it, and then they also have, what is their town hall? Different than the clerk's office down to the south, which is a beautiful building. And then there may be a couple of houses right in that area too. They are one of our smaller communities, a rural community where we're not looking for a big space, but are looking for them to have a center like every other town. So, you know, again, working with them, following the rules, looking at their zoning, looking at their plan, working with their planning commission. That's what we came up with.
Is there anyone who wants to describe a little bit what's in Leicester?
Leicester.
Leicester?
Sure. I can do that.
Thanks.
Thanks for sticking with us, Hannah.
Okay.
1 minute.
So, Route 7 is the road right in the middle of the map. The center west of that has the town clerk's office, the town school. There's another municipal hall there, right on the 4 corners with Route 7, and then some commercial general store, other general commercial areas in Leicester. We looked at their plan. That's what they would call their village. It's where all their municipal infrastructure is. They do have denser zoning in that area. How am I doing, Hannah? Okay, anything to add?
You're doing great. I can pull up the zoning. Oh, well, I
Leicester
can.
is a town that has a lot of seasonal activity with Fern Lake and Lake Dunmore. So at that intersection, if you go to the east, that brings you very quickly to Fern Lake. So a lot of Leicester's based is there because of that.
Thank you.
That's Katie, by the way.
What?
That's Katie that just spoke.
Oh, Katie.
This is Kirsten. Thank you so much.
And this is Danelle. One thing I want to point out is that Waltham is our only town that does not have a center. So.
But you've got growth center.
Right. Yes,
down
we
into
have
it.
for Jen's PTA going into it, but they really have a town hall. We thought it'd be weird to do one parcel. Hannah thought did it really work?
And then just pointing out, Adam was right with the zoning. That section of town is actually zoned as village. So it's being identified and called out in the town plan already. So we thought we'd follow their lead.
Yeah, thanks.
Just a very minor note. My name is Dr. Julian Larson. I'm the energy planner at the RPC. And just a very minor thing that I'd like to add in the case of Leicester and Goshen. Both of these communities are municipal energy resilience program, MERP program communities, and they are making investments in the buildings that are contained within these village district areas. They're historical community centers that are both well over 100 years old, and that they're revitalizing and working to continue their functionality into the future. So these are areas that the communities themselves have been deemed as very valuable and have been recognized to the state as a deserving increased investment as well. So small note, but
That's great. Thank
Yes,
you. Thanks. So thank you, everybody. We will continue our review. The board will draft a response, a written response, and we will be discussing that at, our meetings in the coming month before we finalize it and pass it off to you. We'll let you know, Regional Planning Commission planners, when it's on the agenda, so that you can partake in our discussions if you would like. Anybody have anything else to add before we wrap it up for the day? Anyone online? Thank you so much for your hospitality. Thanks for getting the bus, Adam. I had fun on the trip. So, and thank you for hosting us here today too.
Yeah, great presentation. Hannah, well done. The maps, very impressive.
Thank you.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
That is unanimous. The Land Use Review Board is adjourned.
This is where I